The host for this evening is Alyscia Cunningham. Alyscia, author, filmmaker, and photographer, Alicia's work focuses on changing the dialogue around beauty standards for women. After the success of Alicia's first book, Feminine Transitions, a photographic celebration of natural beauty, she became one of the frontline voices for Stop the Beauty Madness, a campaign focused on changing the dynamics of beauty globally. She continues her contribution to social change with her documentary film and photography book, I Am More Than My Hair. Alyscia also co-organized Real Moms, a supportive community for working moms and caregivers in the film and TV industry, in partnership with Women in Film and Video. Alyscia, thank you very much. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Thank you for the intro. And I also want to thank the panelists that are joining me today and the ASL interpreters. Caption, I appreciate your energy and your time so much for this panel discussion, making it accessible. I am the artist as well, so my work is on display at Sandy Spring Museum until September 5th. So if you're able, I would appreciate you can visit the website, sandyspring.org, and RSVP to attend the exhibit. Before we get into the panel discussion, I would like to play the reception video, which is the opening from a local council member in Montgomery County, where I live, Will Jawando, and then the walkthrough of my exhibit at Sandy Spring Museum.
Hi, everyone. I'm Councilmember Will Jawando. It's great to be with you today for the opening of this incredible exhibit, I Am More Than My Hair. I want to thank the artist, Miss Alyscia Cunningham, for inviting me to participate, and I hope to get by there in person as my schedule allows and as safety allows. This is a very timely event. As an at-large council member, I have the honor of representing the entire county. And while much of my work has to do with education and transportation and obviously dealing with the COVID health pandemic, criminal justice reform, so many other things, your exhibition speaks to a deeply personal issue that touches both my family life and policy. I am the father of 4 children, 3 young daughters and a son, and the husband to an amazing wife, Michelle, all of whom have their hair in natural hairstyles. And it's different and it changes. I don't have to tell anyone that's probably at this exhibit today that has experienced this as a person of color, or anyone who's had to try to conform to what our society has said is a standard of beauty. For many women and men, that's been Eurocentric, and that's been fraught with all sorts of self-doubt and self-worth issues, discrimination in the workplace. It's one of the reasons that I passed the Crown Act along with my colleagues and worked with Councilmember Navarro to protect natural hairstyles under our anti-discrimination laws. We were the first county in the nation to pass that bill. So I Am More Than My Hair addresses an aspect of beauty that is often overlooked and exaggerated. Hair is often depicted as the crown of glory, that it has to feel or look a certain way. But what you're doing is saying that, no, you're beautiful the way you are. You should be accepted the way you are. And that is just such an important message at this moment in our history. For those who have lost hair or don't have hair, becoming completely bald or dealing with alopecia, that can take a lot of confidence from a woman or from anybody. And what you're saying is that hair, no hair, you are who you are. You are more than the sum of any one part. And I just want to thank you for focusing on these inner attributes and self-worth, and commend you for taking your own personal experience and working with other women to make a strong statement today, Ms. Cunningham. So thank you. Whether it's my little girl asking me, as she did before we passed the Crown Act, Daddy, why isn't my hair long and straight like the pretty girls? And me telling her, you're beautiful the way God made you. Or if you're obviously the Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who's dealt publicly with her hair journey and what that meant, and having it and not having it. The time is now, it's long past time to say that we are who we are and we're not defined by our hair. We're defined by who we are in the inside, and so how we treat one another. So thank you for all that you're doing. And I just wanted to stop by and say congratulations. And I look forward to seeing the exhibit. And thank you for contributing to the fabric of our county in a deep and personal and very impactful way. So take care and stay safe.
Welcome to Sandy Spring Museum. The exhibit, I Am More Than My Hair by Alyscia Cunningham. Large, vibrant portraits hang on sun-dappled walls alongside 3D relief versions and busts.
I was really pissed that everyone criticized me about cutting my hair. In response to the criticism, I decided to do a tribute to women who have either lost their hair or decided to just cut their hair. I really primarily focus on women and imagery and dispelling the myth of a beauty standard. Hi, my name is Alyscia Cunningham, and I am the filmmaker, photographer, and the artist of I Am More Than My Hair exhibit at Sandy Spring Museum. I Am More Than My Hair is a collection of images I photographed. In total, it was about 64 women and girls who have lost their hair due to a health-related condition. And it also includes images of women who cut their hair in solidarity of a loved one. The book includes the images of each person and then the story of how they lost their hair. What I really wanted to do was educate people about alopecia, which means hair loss. The exhibit does have the accessibility component, so when you scan the QR code that's on the story with your phone, you can hear the story. Some women were able to participate, some was just the audio describer that told their story and the description of the image. So as you feel the lithophane, which is a 3D relief print, it's the exact replica of the photograph, but it's a raised relief so that you can feel the textures and you can kind of feel the shape of what the image looks like as the audio describer is telling you what the image looks like or what the woman is doing in the picture, what's her background. You can use the audio pen and go through each image description, and it'll tell you the same that's in the story that's accompanying the images. I really just wanted to show that despite what we see in the media, because I know there's a lot on makeup and beauty and texture and skin color, everything, I just wanted to show that with or without hair, you know, that we're still beautiful, and to prove it, which was triggered for me really just being mad, you know, by the response. That's how it came about. The exhibit opens today, which is Friday, March 19th, and it goes until September 5th. And if you would like to learn more about my work, visit alyscia.com, and that's my first name, ALYSCIA.com. I would like to introduce our moderator today, who is Ann Cunningham. And Ann Cunningham is a tactile artist. She has been teaching art at the Colorado Center for the Blind since 1999. She is currently illustrating Backyard Birder, a tactile audio-visual book, which includes 6 noisy urban and rural birds common throughout North America. This work is supported by an Insight grant from the Andy Warhol Foundation and Redline Contemporary Art Center in Denver. During the last year, Anne has turned most of her attention into writing and illustrating picture books for blind children at ages 0 to 3. She is working in coordination with teachers and families to develop materials that will encourage early literacy skills. That's amazing. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Alicia. I am so happy to be here today. Thank you for the invitation. I have so many questions for this stellar panel that you put together. So I'm excited to jump right in. I was thinking that perhaps what we could do is go down through the panel and each of us take a moment to introduce ourselves, and then please share an experience that drew you into exploring making art accessible, since that's the title of this panel today. So to give you a moment to get your thoughts in order, I'll start. My name's Ann Cunningham, and I am a tactile artist. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm dyslexic. I sculpt stone and illustrate books with pictures that can be read by touch. An early learning experience for me was at my first tactile exhibit when I showed a friend who is blind since birth a picture, and I learned just how quickly the idea of picture, which was very nebulous at best in her mind, was transformed into the experience of a picture by merely being offered the opportunity. And so I think that a lot of what has guided me through my career is just knowing that if I just provide the opportunity, who knows where that will evolve to for in each person's life that's touched by that. So perhaps we could ask Becky to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, I'm Becky Emmert, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm head of accessibility at Portland Art Museum. and I grew up with disabilities. And so my experience and passion for access and art is very personal because it's something that I'm passionate about. But a lot of time when I go to institutions or museums or galleries, it's not accessible for me. So that's deeply personal for me, but also seeing other individuals in the deaf and disabled communities being able to have access and knowing what that means to us is what has led me to this place.
Great. Thank you, Becky. Brandy.
Hi, yes, my name is Brandy Mimms, and I am a deaf dancer. I make dance accessible, art accessible for the deaf community, also to just to teach the world, not just hearing, but just the world that um, as a deaf individual or as a deaf community, we've been limited, always saying that we were not able to do a lot of things growing up. And I actually grew up believing those things as a kid, and as a young adult, I grew up believing that I could not do a lot of things. Um, and now I have the passion to dance, and I have the passion to show my talent and my passion and desire for art and dance and speaking and showing and creating a dance company of my own to help and to inspire others to make things accessible for the deaf community, not only deaf, but deaf blind, because I also have Usher syndrome, and that's eventually, I'm not completely blind yet, but eventually I'll be deaf blind later on in life. So I just want to continue making deaf awareness to help others that wasn't there for me when I was a kid, and I want to make it more accessible now for my generation after me. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. Cheryl, perhaps you could introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. This is Cheryl. I use she, her, hers pronouns. And I am a filmmaker and audio producer, but that's how I got started in working in this area. But primarily, I am a captioner and audio describer. And I got into that also kind of like Becky through my own disability experiences. I was part of the disability art scene here in Portland and noticed that people were often showing films without captions. But when they did have captions, they were pretty garbagey. And I thought, oh, I bet I could learn how to make better captions than that. And so I got into captioning kind of like Alyscia, because I was mad about something different, but I was mad about why would you put so much effort and time and thought and care into making a beautiful film and then just knowingly put garbage captions on it and not care. And then at one of my film screenings that was captioned, I heard somebody whispering through the whole event. And I asked what it was. And it was somebody who was live audio describing my film to a non-visual learner in the audience. And that was a major facepalm for me. I thought, wait, I'm doing captions. Oh, mercy, I forgot about this whole other world. And so I got trained in audio description. And it's really about access and equity for me. It's just simply, it's beyond unfair and unjust. And 30 years after the ADA has passed, it's inexcusable. So that's how I got into it. And I audio described and captioned Alicia's documentary, I Am More Than My Hair, which is how I came to be here. I am endlessly impressed and excited and grateful to Alyscia for how she does her work, and it's beautiful stuff. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Julie, could you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you so much. Well, like Cheryl, I also am an audio describer, but I also came to audio description in a very roundabout way. I'm a biologist by training, and I was asked to create an interpretive self-guided nature trail here in Wisconsin. And so I wrote the content and created the panels, did all the layout, and it was an accessible trail. Now, at that time, years ago, that just meant it was a smooth, hard surface. That's what accessible meant. And then I thought, well, what else can we do? How else can we make this accessible? And I met a man along the trail who's who was blind, and he said, you know, I'm tired of everyone saying, come and experience this, and they give me an audio description script and it's to listen to, and it's 3 hours long. And while the trail may take us a half an hour to experience. And that really made me think. And he said, I would like auditory glances, just like sighted people can glance and determine what they are interested in. What do they want to experience? They don't necessarily want the whole experience. So I took that as a challenge, as well as Cheryl and as Becky and everyone who got a little bit angry, like Alyscia, and thought, how can I really make this right? So I realized that my strength in audio description was in describing landscapes, describing nature as my background, where Cheryl is just right on the live scene because she's does that in production. So that ended up being my niche. And I also thought, well, how can we make this affordable? How can we make audio technology affordable? And I came across a little device that I ended up rebranding from the United Kingdom called the Discovery Pen, and decided that that's how we're going to allow people to take those auditory glances in nature. You're not tied down to any one spot. It's just something you throw in your pocket and go. So that's where it started, and then it moved into other galleries. And Lisa found me, and I couldn't just believe the opportunity of the great work that she was doing to also bring Cheryl's audio description to the scene in this gallery setting. So it's just been an exciting adventure for me as well, and I learn every day.
Great, thank you. I see Marguerite is here. Marguerite, would you
Yes.
care to introduce yourself?
Hi. I would love to. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you speak
Hello?
up a little bit
Yes.
more?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
That's better. Thank you.
Better?
Yes.
Great. Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Marguerite Wood, and it's such an honor to be here. Alyscia has been a great influence and impact on my life since we met. And Anne, of course, has been one of those inspiring leaders that you meet along the trail. And the rest of the ladies on the panel, I am meeting you through your work and your words. And I'm so, just delighted and inspired to be among you on this panel. And to introduce myself, I'll have to tell you that I came at it from a purely selfish angle. I was looking to soothe my own soul. I became blind as an adult, and I had an opportunity to spend some time in India. And that's where I got introduced to putting my hand in the clay. And it was such a soothing feeling for me. I knew immediately when I returned to the United States that I was going to pursue a class for clay, but I was looking for it so that I could put my hands in the clay. I love the feel of it. I love rubbing on it. And I was never intending to create anything other than the experience that soothed my soul, as I said, among other people. Well, I met a teacher who showed me so many wonderful things that I could do as an artist. And it occurred to me that I wanted this experience for as many blind people as possible. So I started chatting it up with as many people possible to listen to. And I happened to be working with the Baltimore Playworks organization, and they took me up on it. And I was very connected to the National Federation of the Blind. And I ended up having a fundraiser, fun experience for people to come and create clay. And it was such a wonderful experience for everybody. And we wanted more of it. And that's around the same time that I got introduced to Anne Cunningham and what she was doing. And it just became very important because I always enjoyed art before I was blind. And I didn't know quite how I could continue that desire in a way that soothed me and made me. And so the idea of that becoming a broader opportunity for people, just has organically grown in me. And it's taking me to doing more things with Baltimore Playworks. I've done some things with the museum in Colorado, and it's just been an opportunity to have work that I've created that has actually been displayed in Baltimore City Gallery. And so the work continues, and the expansion of where it can go continues to inspire and create opportunities for me to share it wherever I go. And so it's become just part of the quest for experiencing art and also creating art and encouraging others to create art that people like myself and others can enjoy, fully. And being a part of the process of making it happen is also a part of what I want to be a part of.
Thank you so much, Marguerite.
Yeah.
Alyscia, would you like to introduce yourself in this way?
Yes, I feel like I'll give a little more background. So I'm an author, filmmaker, and photographer, and I do focus on really dispelling the myth or the idea of a beauty standard, and that came along from personal experience when I was just getting started in the field of photography, and a well-known photographer looked at a picture that I took of a pregnant woman, which I love. I love pregnancy pictures, black and whites. And she said to me, I should never. It's a beautiful portrait, but I should never show a pregnant woman a picture of her stomach without photoshopping the stretch marks. And I asked her. I was confused. I'm like, what is she? I didn't get it. I'm like, maybe there's something I just don't understand. And she said to me, well, it's ugly, so you should always Photoshop it. And I politely disagreed with her, but I was like, what in the world? Like, why would you even say that? I really couldn't figure that out. She was doing a portfolio review. So I thought to myself, if she can tell me this, I can't imagine what she was telling everyone else. That was all the other photographers. And I left there feeling like, you know what? I'm really fed up because I fell in love with photography when I first did it. I love the darkroom. I love the whole process of seeing the print, although the chemicals aren't good for you, but and at that moment, I was like, if this is what photography is going to be like, I want nothing to do with it. Like, I don't want anything to do with this Photoshop thing. It can be used for really great things because you can be really creative and, do great things with it. But with people, I felt like there is this very fine line of where you can make people who are particularly children, because I'm always thinking about the youth, have this idea of beauty that can be so unrealistic that they can go to extreme standards to try to live up to that set beauty standard. So I started off with my first book, Feminine Transitions, which is pictures of women all ages 6 weeks to 103. And they had to be bare, no makeup, no accessories, just raw beauty. And it was really that was my also response to being pissed. And I was like, I'm going to show you that we're beautiful without this Photoshop thing, and without the makeup. And then from there, you heard the story with I Am More Than My Hair was also in response to people criticizing me about my hair, and the Bible verses that I kept on hearing about a woman in her hair. And I said, I'm going to prove to you that we don't need our hair to be beautiful. We're beautiful without it, with or without it. So that's really how it came about, I just, went from there, and I figured that the universe will guide me and help me to figure it out. But the accessibility portion came into play from Marguerite invited me to a meeting with National Federation of the Blind in Baltimore. And I was like, I knew it was divine intervention because I got there, and the first thing that I heard the members talking about was how they're so upset that when they go to the movies and they can't, the headphones don't work. And they can't hear and I'm sitting there and I still didn't get it. I didn't understand, like, when they're talking about the headphones, what do they mean? But then I heard them mention about the art, and when they go to museums, they're not included. And there's insurance which plays a big part, because if you don't have, most museums don't want to cover the insurance for tactile art. So therefore they're excluded from the experience. And I'm sitting there with my daughters who are with me, and I'm like, that's just so unfair. I don't think that's fair. Like, why would they be excluded? So it was that meeting that actually brought accessibility to my attention. And then I was like, well, now as an artist, now that I know that there's a problem, there's no way that I have to somehow figure out a solution. But with that solution is definitely the challenging part, which is funding. So it has been we can be on here, stay on here all day talking about the challenges that came with this, but I'm so glad that you do have people like Cheryl and Julie who are able to make it affordable, so that I was able to have that part of my exhibit accessible for the public.
That's great. Thank you so much for expanding on your background and your thoughts. I would like to ask the other panelists, what are, expanding on what Alicia just talked about, was the problem and then the solution for maybe one small part of this huge picture that we're all grappling with. Cheryl, could you perhaps start us off?
Sorry, Anne, are you referring specifically to Alicia's film and exhibit?
Just the whole big picture, something that you find is like, our panelists were talking about, well, we all know this is true, but that this is a problem, but I'm not sure that everybody does know all the different aspects. Things become obvious when we get into this, our own little corner of what we're grappling with. And I was thinking, let's expand on that and talk about something that is a challenge that you've dealt with and come up with a solution.
Wow, okay. This is Cheryl again. Thank you for clarifying. I am abysmal with open-ended questions that I didn't prepare for. So it's like just trying to keep track of my thoughts is very challenging for me. But one example I think I would say is how to describe people. And that's both in my captioning work, like describing what music I'm hearing, tone of voice, but then in the audio description and image description work, how do you know how to describe people? Because a lot of people new to audio description and captioning think that we are supposed to be neutral, objective observers, and we're human, so we're not neutral, objective observers. And my friend and mentor Tom Read My Mind Radio. Yes, that's a plug for his podcast, Read My Mind, REID, readmymind.com. Everybody subscribe. He talks about the audio describer is like another director. So somebody directed the film, and your job is to bring that director's vision to life in a way that is immersive and wonderful for the audience. And so I do it that way. And so how I solve the problem is I ask. And that's, people seem to think, well, we can, we're post-production, we're the experts. You're not. I didn't make Alicia's film, Alicia made it. I'm not the people in her film. And so how I do it is all of my clients get a draft of my audio description script, and they get to mark it up and change it however they want. And if there's a disagreement, of course, we'll discuss it and I'll explain where I was coming from. But then also, in the case of this beautiful exhibit she put together, the people contributed, everything is turning to mud. But I also, whenever possible, get the people to tell me how they want to be described. So not just the director, but go to the people in the exhibit or in the film. And so just, I think in summary, I would say it is flipping the idea of who's the expert. And I don't care how much training I've had, I am not the expert in you. And so I honor the people who I'm captioning and describing by finding out, when possible, who they are and what they want me to say about them.
That is so brilliant and so obvious once you say it, but I keep getting reminded of that over and over again. Just ask. Yeah. It's hard to remember though. Thank you so much. That was great. Is there someone else with a thought along these lines who would like to share?
Sure, I'll just segue right from Cheryl and keep the audio description rolling. I'm thinking of so much as well. I took a few notes here. Some of the challenges seem to be in any situation, in any exhibit, is this the unknowing, the unawareness of what needs to happen to make something accessible. As I mentioned earlier, it's not just a smooth surface. It's Alicia and I had great discussions about the beautiful Sandy Spring Museum, and I said, well, what does that look like? What is your space? What's the feel of your space? And so that part was fun to describe, to look at photographs. Unfortunately, I couldn't get there, but I look forward to someday. And describing through photography and through other research. That's the fun part of the job, of my job, is all the research that goes into some of these things. And so thinking about what we take for granted as a sighted individual every day, then stepping back from that and saying, okay, now I have a huge responsibility as a describer. I take it very seriously that I am someone else's vision, and as to what I'm going to tell them what they're going to experience. That's heavy. And also to respect the artist or the exhibitor, wherever it is. You have to. It's a serious task, and it's also a lot of fun. But I'm thinking that responsibility. To be someone else's eyes, and to also, as Cheryl said, when you're talking about a person's body or how a person looks, uh, and describing that, and this could go back to old time photographs. It takes a lot of thought to say, okay, what do I describe first? What's the most important? And quite often, I would be criticized in my descriptions if someone would, who is not necessarily writing audio description every day, they'll say you didn't describe what they were wearing, or I'm talking about, old photographs or something. And I think, well, that's not what I thought was the most important. So when Alyscia came to me to talk about this issue, and I thought, this is great. This is exactly what needs to be happening. Focusing on the important, which isn't always the hair, the clothes, something like that. And also, the other challenge and solution that I can think of, especially in audio description and accessibility, is it's always an afterthought of a major project. So Alicia's genius to put this at the forefront, I think, needs to be commended and echoed across the country and the world, because it should come first. Universal design benefits everyone. So the fact that oftentimes in a contract, or I'll receive a bid or a description, and everything's been done, and they say, now we need it to be accessible. Oh, okay. And you have 3 weeks to do it, because we're done, our part's done. So that's one of the challenges. And I guess, and to address what the solution would be to that, is more of Alicia. More Alicia is saying, let's put this at the forefront and work the other direction.
Right. That's a really good point. I would like to follow up on some other questions a little bit later, after we get some other feedback from other participants about this first question. Would someone else like to go?
I'd be happy to share.
Great, thank you.
I just want to echo both with what Cheryl and Julie both said, that it's very helpful to plan ahead, and to I think a lot of institutions think of this as boxes that you check of legal obligations that you follow. And even if you do that, which a lot of institutions don't yet, but even if you do that successfully, you're still missing a big piece, which is inclusion. So there's access, but there's also providing inclusion, and the perspectives that you get and the culture that you get that you wouldn't get if those individuals weren't involved in the process is just invaluable. And so choosing to make access and inclusion a value, and then following that value with planning for budget, planning for time, planning for team members, and looking at who's on that team, and including people with lived experience from the beginning, instead of trying to guess what people might need, I think is very effective. And we had one opportunity to do that right after I started at Portland Art Museum, and that was working with the artist Hank Willis Thomas, doing a commissioned piece specific for the museum. And it went through different stages and ideas, but thinking about accessibility, really changed kind of the perspective of how it was going to be created. And it ended up being an amazing piece. Several very long flags with stars, each one representing a gun death during a specific year. But it was situated so that you could walk between them and you could sit in among them, and there was room for mobility devices and multiple people to walk through, and it was hung in a way that there was tactile opportunities. And so not just visitors with disabilities, but everybody benefited from that change. And so there's really amazing things that can be done when it's done from the start instead of just adding it at the end. So I really appreciate that Alyscia thought about that in the beginning. And I was thinking back to the first time she called me and we chatted, and the questions and the ideas and all the work and the research that she put into it. And I wish I could come see it in person because I know that it's amazing, but just a testament to what can happen when you plan from the beginning and make it a value.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Thank you, Becky. Marguerite, do you have some thoughts about what, what makes things more accessible or
Yes.
in art exhibits for you?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I do. Am I loud enough? Can you hear me?
If you could speak up a little bit more, that would be great.
Yeah. Okay. How about this?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. I did want to say, adding on to what all the ladies have shared before me, they're all right, spot on. To me, what seems to happen is it causes us to relate to each other and others about what we want. It becomes very deep and expansive because it's not a flat experience. It may start off that way with an idea or a picture or a thought, but you have to communicate with each other in order to get the fullness of what's trying to be expressed. And I go to a lot of plays, and they're audio described to me. And what ends up happening is the artist has a sentiment or a thought, and it is trying to give a message from a particular perspective. And I, as an audience member, am receiving it, but there's certain things that I'm needing in order to receive it. And so the person describing it to me almost has to you know, have dual um, responsibilities or skills, trying to meld and blend those two things together so that it's a full experience for the person receiving it, but also being respecting and honoring what the artist is trying to give as a message to the best of that person's ability. And so they become a part of the process. So I'm not getting just what the artist is putting out there along with the artist and all the other things. I'm getting a part of that person, um, giving me the message. And so it becomes a very interesting experience. It expands it. It takes it from what it would be if it was just a person sitting there with their full senses receiving something, and you're adding an entirely different dimension to it. So it can enhance your experience or it can take away from it. And so then you create a dialogue or a conversation with the person that's giving it to you. And so that evolves over time because I go to a lot of the same theaters, and so a lot of the same people will be describing things to me. So I find that it's causing relationships to become fuller and deeper, and they become personal to some extent. And it takes everybody um, out of where they may have started and opens it up. And it becomes creative as well as just sharing. So yeah, I wanted to offer that.
Oh, thank you so much, Marguerite. I see a lot of people on the panel are 100% agreeing with you.
Yes.
So, Brandy, would you like to share some of your experiences?
Yes, my experience in the art. As a deaf dancer, I went to a university. I started my dance training when I started college at my university. I was their first deaf dancer that wanted to study and dance. I've never took dance a day in my life before that. So they were kind of like afraid because they had a deaf individual that wanted to learn to become a dancer. So um, at first they were worried because, you know, you had to be able to have the skill already. And I really didn't have the skill, but I found ways to make it work for me. So um, I had myself an interpreter, and let's see, had an interpreter always there to help me through ballet, jazz, and all the modern classes. In my normal classes, I had a caption. It's like a computer, and a person would type what the teachers would say, and it would pop up on the computer. Um, in the art form, going to theater, just like I'm not pronouncing her name, right? Miss Woods. But she was
Yeah.
saying when she go to a theater, um, for me, it's kind of hard because I love going to plays and I like going to theater. The only thing for me is if I go to a theater that has words, that has transcripts and um, scripts and stuff, the only thing that will work for us is have an interpreter there to interpret what's being said on in the play or in the performance. Normally, I would go and that's not provided, and I'm literally like sitting there and I am like totally lost because I can't understand what's being said and it's too much going on. So
Yeah.
sometimes they will give us headphones, and that's great. Yes, some of us are hard of hearing, so headphones would be great. Um, but to make it more accessible, like they sit us close up front to be able to see what's going on and making sure we have interpreters and make sure we have some kind of device. Because some of us probably can use headphones to hear. Like I go to the movie theater to watch a movie now, and I always either get the closed caption screen that will read what the movie is saying, or I would get the headphone that will help me. But I normally just get the caption because, but as a dancer, to make it accessible for dance, it's just that we always just need an interpreter there just to make sure that we are able to understand what's being said. Um, for my performance, it's a lot of dancing. So, you know, you can see with your eyes. My name of my dance company is Listen with Your Eyes Dance Troupe. Listen with Your Eyes Dance Troupe. Basically, it's an adult professional dance company that I've created 2 years ago. And it is what it is. You listen with your eyes, meaning we do not need our ears to hear our dancing. You need your eyes to see our dancing. Um, so if you're looking at a dance, I tell dance with my body. I tell my story with my body. To make it accessible, I always make sure I have an interpreter there just to make sure if there's words and music, you know. So um, there's always ways to make it work because when a deaf individual is in a room and a lot of talking going on and we can't connect, we feel isolated and disconnected from the community and the discussion because we cannot we can't catch up with being said. So it's making it accessible for art, and I'm gonna hurry up and say this because I feel like I talk too much. To make it accessible for students, kids. I'm a teacher. I teach dance at the deaf school. Okay, and I teach dance all over the community, and I want to teach teachers. Like I recently, someone said, "Well, I was teaching dance, but I quit because I didn't know how to do ASL." I was like, "Well, you don't have to quit. Just go learn some basic sign language. You know, learn how to count and sign. Learn your finger spell. When you have a deaf individual, you know, make sure that you make sure they know that you are there, that you know that they're there. Don't forget that they're in the room. Um, don't make them feel singled out about something. Make them feel like they're part of a group and not, well, let's just give this attention to this person because they don't want to be treated differently. I definitely don't. I just want you to make sure that you're accommodating me to feel that I'm a part of and not by myself. I had a lot of experience with that. You know, in theater, the choreographer would be in the dark, way in the back, and they're making corrections, and I'm on the stage and they're talking, and I'm like, and I'm like, what's being said because I can't understand what's going on. But when you have a deaf individual, just make sure you make them aware that they are there, make sure they feel a part. It takes simple, easy lesson to learn basic sign language, but like I said, we're deaf and we're very visual. So we listen and look and learn with our eyes more than we do with our ears. Our superpowers are our eyes, really. So that's my experience in the art, making art accessible for, for my community.
Thank you. Alicia, we are coming up on the end of the hour. I know you had a few things you wanted to tuck into the end of this program. Did you want to?
Well, really, I know it was when I wanted to leave some time for questions. I do see Mama D's hand up there. There's one person who has a hand up there, but before answering the question, I did want to kind of reiterate for anybody who missed the video in the beginning on how I made this exhibit accessible. And this took months of me. Actually, it was like about a year of figuring out putting the pieces together. So there's a Lithophane, which is a 3D relief of the print of each of my prints. And I came up with the concept because I couldn't figure out how else I can get a 3D print. So a Lithophane is just 3D print. So it's of each picture, and so you can feel it. And the thought was, you hear the audio describer, who is Cheryl Green, who did the audio description of what the image looks like, and then you can feel it, and then kind of get a feel for what the image looks like based on the audio description as well. Because of COVID, the county we had some restrictions recently with COVID, so no one can touch the print, unfortunately, until they loosen the restrictions. But that's how it is now. And then you hear the audio description, which is what I mentioned in the video as well. You can scan the QR code, which was created by Julie, that it's on each story. And I learned recently that through this actually that I can scan the QR code and hear the story. I didn't know that. So when I went to Florida, I actually did it through the park, and I scanned the codes so I can hear what each about the trees. And then you can hear the story through the QR code on your phone or through the audio pen. And I actually wanted Julie to do a quick demo of how the audio pen works, since it was in the video, which is the description of the story of each woman in the picture. I really appreciate the women who participated. So if you're able to get to the exhibit, there's a handful of women who are actually able to submit their story. So you would hear Cheryl tell what the image looks like and what they're wearing, and then you will hear most of the women that would come on and tell their story in it. So I was very thankful for the opportunity, and I created light boxes. So that's another thing. I purchased light panels, and then framed it, and then so it made it like a light box lithophane. Yeah.
So one of the questions that came into the museum was, I've been following Alicia's work for several years now, and I'm so impressed beyond this exhibit. Reading your blogs leading up to several weeks prior to this exhibition, it's evident that accessibility isn't very affordable. How can artists, such as myself, afford the means to create accessibility? Can you give a ballpark amount for making an exhibit accessible?
Okay, so ballpark amount, it will depends on size and everything, which are what I learned. So the lithophanes are 11 by 14s, and each one with the panel and the frame and the lithophane is about $740. I wish that was a lower price, but it's just that's the cost that it is now. So that part, if I had not did I get this grant through iPhone Women and American Express. I also got a grant from Maryland State's Arts Council and Arts and Humanities Council of Montgomery County, and then 2 foundations. I don't know if I would have been able to do this without those grants. So I'm thankful for the grants that came in. But then also with the audio description and the audio, and then the discovery pens, that was a lot more affordable than the actual print itself. So in a situation, maybe if you cannot get the print, I'm not sure if this artist is a photographer or not, but because you can also do the lithophane with paintings as well. But if they cannot get the print made, then at least you can have the print, but then you can have the audio description and the discovery pen. Will describe it, so hopefully, that answers the question. And that makes it more affordable.
Thank you. So, are there any hands up?
Yes, Mama D's hand is up. So I don't know if Mama D wants to.
She, Mama D has had her hand up since the beginning of the webinar. I'm not sure if the.
Okay. Let me see if I can allow her to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
I didn't know I put my hand up, but thank you for allowing me to talk. And I just want to say to Alicia and all the panelists, this was so wonderful. This was so educational. And to Brandy, your line about listening with your eyes, I took an ASL course and my teacher was deaf. So I had to learn to listen with my eyes. Good tagline. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. Alicia, I love you.
Love you too, Mama D. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Mama D was actually in the, she was in the book, in the film, so.
I actually have something for George here. In the chat, it says, George says, I hope this amazing panel discussion has been recorded so attendees can share and broadcast it to artists, curators, and educators far and wide. Thank you, Sandy Spring and Alicia. Look forward to attending before September 5th. George, we are recording it. It will take some time to edit it together. So within the next month, we should have it up on Sandy Spring Museum's YouTube page, which is, you can find it through our website, sandyspringmuseum.org.
Can I ask one more question, Alicia? Do we have time?
Oh, yes. And then there's also another question by
Okay.
Brandy.
Okay. Becky, you were mentioning that you go through a checklist of design factors to consider when you start a project. I was wondering, could you just go through that, what the design considerations that you do have worked into your workflow for the beginning of an exhibit design?
Sure, and I'm still quite new to the art world, and so that exhibition was the first time that we were thinking about it in process, and it was the first opportunity that I had had to work with an artist in advance. So unfortunately, that's not something that happens all of the time yet. I would love an opportunity to work with more artists to think about those things in the beginning, and I love that Alicia is bringing that to the forefront and encouraging artists to reach out and to make plans. And I would just encourage artists to connect with the deaf community, with the disabled community, with people with lived experience. And just like now moving forward, I'm sure Alicia is going to think about that in her work from what she's learned. So, I think it's a steep learning curve the first time you do it, but there's a lot of resources and a lot of support available. And then I would just encourage museum staff who are working on it. There's a lot of resources available out there. We have a several page long checklist, so I'm not able to remember it all point by point, but just thinking about all the visitors who are going to come, making sure that it's accessible for everybody. So if somebody is deaf, if somebody has vision loss, if somebody is blind, which as we know can be different, thinking about neurodiversity, thinking about lighting, thinking about space, thinking about how people will engage individually or as a group, which I know has changed now with the pandemic. But just taking time to think through those different perspectives. And I think a lot of times we think about things as a box that you check, like, the door is accessible, check. There's a large print label binder, check. But a lot of times those of us with disabilities don't just have one disability, we have multiple disabilities. And so checking that one box isn't necessarily going to be effective. So asking, I think, is great, and listening to the community, because we're here and we're available for feedback and we want to participate. And so I think that just asking, because each exhibition is going to be different, but asking those questions and thinking about it and utilizing the resources. And if anybody needs resources, they can feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to send resources that direction.
Great, thank you, Becky.
Sure.
And if I could just quickly add on to Becky's comments that are just exactly spot on. Many museums have these checklists, but also the National Park Service has Harper's Ferry Center, which deals specifically with exhibit, and this is for museum spaces, nature centers, and outdoor experiences. Anything from angle of the panels, you know, size font that you should be using. All these things Alicia and I went through with developing each part description next to her each portrait. So I'm thinking also of Kennedy Center for the Arts. They have this wonderful, I think it's yearly, it's an accessibility conference. So just getting connected, find somebody in accessibility in your community or in a major city in your state. And there are so many resources available. And I'm sure, as Becky says, we as a group here could put together a nice short list of resources for people to access either through Sandy Spring or through Alicia's website as takeaways and when they're planning their next exhibit, just to get their thoughts going as to what's needed.
Thank you.
It appears we do have 2 questions in the Q&A section. From Allison Weiss, are there any first steps that you all would recommend for museums or galleries to increase accessibility? Anne, have you ever been reading these?
And do you want Michael to read it, or would you like to read it?
Yes, please. I'm not finding them right now.
Okay.
Then from Allison Weiss, once again, we have, are there any first steps that you all would recommend for museums or galleries to increase accessibility?
Anybody?
I'm thinking what Becky initially said, as far as this lived experience, get some people involved in your process or have them go through your museum or your exhibit and talk with them about it. You know, the focus group is probably the not the right term in this situation, but, you know, call up Marguerite and say, hey, we've got this great exhibit. We'd like you to come and experience it and let us know where our gaps are, what we did really well, or that's the only way we're all going to improve. And
can I mention something? I think that's a great point, because as my friend, the deaf dancer, talks about, you listen with your eyes. When I first started to lose my vision, I discovered, well, first of all, I thought I was also losing my hearing. What I discovered is that I was listening with my ears. I was listening with my eyes. And so when I started to lose my vision, I thought I couldn't hear what people were saying. And then I discovered that I needed to start using my ears to actually listen. And so expanding accessibility is just opening everything up. And so speaking to each of our senses is, it seems like that's a full experience. I'm not saying that I understand how it's going to happen. I think there's so much room for creativity and discovery. And through talking with the people who are asking for things to be available in whatever ways allow us to experience and enjoy it and learn from it and even teach from it. And so all of those things are considerations when thinking about all of this. So we're pioneers, it feels like to me.
Yeah.
Brandy, is that a question? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that I like that not Brandy, Becky was mentioning that they have the checklist that they start the design process with. And I think that's so important, because then things get budgeted in and they have a real spot in that design process. When things get left till the end and then we'll deal with it, they're so often just lightly brushed over or neglected altogether if they aren't built into the design process budget right from the beginning.
Brandy, is that your hand? Then please.
I want to add to Miss Woods. So yes, I was born deaf, but then I found later on that I had Usher syndrome, which is will make me become blind later. But I have my experience now as a deaf dancer, and because of my vision is getting bad, I'm pretty much blind at night or in darkness. So I have a new thing I have to learn. So, and when I tell people, if I can't hear you, I can't see you. And if I can't see you, I can't hear you, because I can't do neither one of those two things without, as a deaf dancer or but because of my vision, professional dancers, we get on the stage when it's pitch black, right? So I'm like, oh my God, how am I gonna get on this stage when it's black and I can't see? So I have to learn on my own how to make it work for me. And so what I do is basically, if I was going on stage by myself, I would literally have to close my eyes and count my step to where my mark is. And I would count my step, closing my eyes, and then I would go, well, first I would do it with my eyes open, count my step. Then I would go back. Then I would close my eyes and count it again. And that's how I had to like train myself to get used to being able not to see, and so it's like when you are so used to having your ears and your eyes, but then you start losing it. That's a new experience that you have to start teaching yourself how to get around and how to be able to still move on. But how can you find help? And I'm still learning how to get help. I also learned I now I need to learn how to be able to sign in the dark when someone is using I forgot what it's called because I'm new to it. So now I have to learn how to feel the sign with my hand when it's yes. So I have to learn how to, and I'm like freaking out because like now someone did it before and I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. I've never done this before, so if I can't see you, I can't hear you. And if I can't hear you, I can't see you. So it's just it's just something that's what I tell people and they don't ever understand what I mean when I say that. But it's something that you have to teach and hoping that people start really opening their mind and heart to understand that there are all kinds of us and we all need help in every way, So yeah, that's what I want to say.
And we're gonna be here. Yeah.
Thank you. We have one more question before we finish from Thomas Reed. Question for Miss Alyscia. How has learning about accessibility impacted how you look at creating art in the future?
Oh, well, this completely changed my perspective. So I think now when I'm creating art, it's like, how do I make it accessible? So, and now that I've gone through this journey, I feel a lot more, although there's still room to learn and grow, I feel a lot more educated. And also my first thought is like, how do I help another artist? So having the panel was the thought for me. Like the thought process for me was like, okay, this can be a way to educate not only artists, but also museums, galleries, centers, venues that actually include art, so that they would know the process and the steps. And then you have people here that will be able to help you with this. So please utilize them. And just be able to share that. So it has impacted me deeply and tremendously. And knowing that that there's a group of people that are oftentimes, from the meeting that I went to at National Federation of the Blind, that weren't considered. I'm glad to be a part of the solution. So I'm so grateful for everyone being here. And thank you so much for making this happen. I appreciate Sandy Spring for also providing the platform for me to have the exhibit. Because at that point I was like, okay, I have to have this exhibit. It has to be accessible. In the beginning, it wasn't because I didn't have the funds yet. Once the funds came in, I contacted Allison, and it was like, this is what I want to do, and she was all for it. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And thanks for everyone for coming as well. And we're closing. We will have a poem by Blind Girl Magic, who is here to give us a poem, Jeanetta Price. So I would like to open this up to Jeanetta. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. I'm over here feeling the magic in the Zoom room. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get this party started, okay? I know you're probably wondering what is Blind Girl Magic, so let me explain to you guys. Blind Girl Magic is the type of magic that struts in the room with her white cane extended. Her hips shift like the motion of the eyes of the sighted. Who would have guessed that this blind girl possessed magic? Abracadabra, Now you're convinced that I have some magical superpowers with a supernatural S on my chest. Well, that will be yes for success as I leap over obstacles in life, dodge negativity, slam misconceptions of society, slap I can't in the face where I did that is a fact that blind girl magic goes back to Helen Keller, way back to Harriet Tubman. Born into slavery, escaped the freedom, but she did not stop. She went back and back and back to lead others to freedom. Blind Girl Magic is built off the shoulders of phenomenal women. Blind Girl Magic is an independent movement that is leading our blind sisters to freedom of depression, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, anger, bitterness, rejection. Abracadabra, you are set free. Blind Girl Magic lives within me. So that's it. I want everybody on this panel to know you got that magic, girl. Okay. I'm going to go on. Thank you. I'm going to go on to my poem entitled Beautiful. And I remember at a time in my life where I didn't know I had magic. I thought my life was over when I started losing sight at the age of 25, and I felt that I wasn't beautiful. A lot of misconceptions, right? So I'm going to share my story with you guys in a poetic way. I hate the whips and beat it in my skin from stretching, or how I wear my hair over my eye. You think I'm so fly, but it's to hide the disfiguration of my eye. Wait a minute. I refuse to stand. Afraid it's going to reveal the truth that I'm not prepared to face. So I hide behind a mask, praying that you don't see my blindness. Refuse to use my white cane, afraid that someone will call my name worthless. The negative self-talk is about to drive me insane. Lord, accommodate me. I can't live life without sight. I am ashamed of my new reality. This can't be my destiny. Please hide me from this visual impairment. I'd rather for you to see my double chin or my imperfect smile that frowns upon my chipped tooth that I unconsciously place one hand over my mouth when I'm laughing. Because I've been taught that this was so unattractive. Insecurities bruises you internally. Perfect Pat is who I never be. All the kids used to tease me like, get away from me with your big bubbly lips. And when I looked in the mirror, it disgusted me because I saw it ugly as I replayed the girls making fun of my nappy hair, wide nose, and even my clothes. Clueless that they was killing me so softly with their words, so powerful the tongue, better known as the pink tornado, destroyed my self-esteem, and I helped that I was the biggest child on the team, lacking behind. Ashamed to come out the dressing room, so I cried, praying that the tears would roll off my dark complexion so I could be a lighter version, and the boys just might like me, might even say, oh, hi to me. Oh, how I wished I looked like Barbie. Long hair, pointed nose, vanilla skin. Thin? Did I mention thin? Thin like anorexia, thin like bulimia, who caused a million little girls as well as women to slit their wrists and end up mentally impaired because they are dying to fit in society image of beautifully thin line between love and hate. Oh my, I'm arrested for what? A hate crime. I never hated nobody, but I hated myself. That day, I surrendered. Every insecurity, I surrender. Every heartache, I surrender. Every pain, I surrender over to our Lord and Savior. Today, we are breaking generational curses of insecurities, and it will no longer have stronghold over our lives. Insecurity seeds are known to be planted in one's childhood and grows in adolescence and harvests in adulthood. Insecurities bruises you internally, leaving open wounds only He can heal. God, I believe it and I receive it in your name. I am healed. Insecurities no longer define me. I am more than my disability. I am more than my blindness. I am more than my hair loss. It's not the problem to be solved, but the misconception that define beauty in our community. I am not my hair. I am not my past, my failures, my setbacks set me up for my comeback. Embracing my beauty of the art of spoken word. Spread the spoken word all over the world that we are who our Father created us to be. Beautiful, just the way we are, with or without. Remove the doubt. Listen to your eyes. Listen to your ears. You are beautiful. Thank you.
Wow.
Beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you so much. I know we ran a little over time. I so appreciate everyone for staying. Thank you, Jeanetta. That was amazing.
Yes, that was spectacular. Thank you.
Thank y'all for the opportunity. Thank you, Alyscia. Thank you, Marguerite.
Thank
I love
you so
guys.
much.
And before we,
Go ahead.
please, Alyscia, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say also, just to remind everyone, as I mentioned, that you have accessibility here. You need someone to to recite a poem for you. Jeanetta Price. You have Cheryl Green and Julie Hine here, and then also Joyful Signing. I answered somebody else's question, but they are the ASL interpreters. So please do utilize everyone's skills. And Marguerite also teaches courses, sculpture. You got Brandy, who is a dancer, and Ann Cunningham, who is a tactile artist and author. So I'm so grateful for everyone for being here. Thank you, Michael. You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
And Sandy Spring Museum. But go ahead. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Alyscia. I appreciate it so much. And thank you to all of our panelists. This was a wonderful program. And I just want to say thank you again to everyone who attended this wonderful virtual event. At the museum, upcoming events are the virtual discussion with the Good Garden Club entitled Everything Roses on April 11th, and the in-person yarn bomb on the museum grounds on April 17th in conjunction with the exhibit Path of Pyramids. Please visit the museum Please visit the museum's online calendar to see a description of all of our events. Thank you so much.
Montgomery Municipal Cable, mmctv.org.